In the 1950s, payday could still be several days away when a mother opened the refrigerator and found one package of hot dogs, a bowl of leftover potatoes, and half an onion. She could have boiled the hot dogs and placed one on each plate, but that was not how resourceful mothers handled a nearly empty kitchen. They sliced those hot dogs into dozens of pieces. They wrapped them in biscuit dough, buried them beneath golden potatoes, covered them with gravy, and arranged them around casserole dishes like the centerpiece of a Sunday table. The ingredients were inexpensive, but the dinner did not have to look inexpensive. Number 16, turn ordinary hot dogs into something that resembled small steaks. Number 7, borrowed the sweet glaze and bright pineapple of a holiday ham. And number 1, looked so carefully arranged that children may have believed company was coming. These meals were not about fooling the family, they were about protecting the feeling around the table. Subscribe, and let us count down 21 forgotten hot dog dinners poor mothers made look expensive. Number 21, hot dog potato boats. When leftover mashed potatoes sat in the refrigerator, a careful mother did not serve the same meal twice. She split several hot dogs lengthwise, leaving the bottom connected so each one opened like a small boat. Then she warmed the potatoes with a little milk or margarine and spooned them carefully into the center. If cheese was available, she laid a thin strip across the top. If it was not, breadcrumbs, paprika, or even a few crushed crackers created a golden finish. The filled hot dogs went into the oven until the edges curled and the potato peaks browned. Placed separately on each plate, they looked more like individual stuffed meat portions than an inexpensive package of frankfurters. A few peas or canned carrots added color beside them. The children did not see yesterday's potatoes being reused. They saw a hot dinner made especially for each person at the table. Nothing about the ingredients was costly, but the neat shape, brown top, and individual serving made the meal feel planned rather than patched together. Number 20. Frankfurter bean bake. Beans were one of the best ways to make a small amount of meat feed a large family. A mother mixed beans with chopped onion, mustard, tomato sauce, and a spoonful of brown sugar or molasses, but instead of hiding the hot dogs inside, she arranged them across the top. Sometimes the hot dogs were cut in half and placed like the spokes of a wheel. In other kitchens, they were sliced diagonally and arranged in overlapping rows. As the casserole baked, the sauce became dark and glossy. The hot dogs browned around the edges, and their salty flavor spread through every spoonful of beans. The arrangement created the appearance of plenty. One small package seemed to cover the entire dish. Brought to the table in a heavy casserole pan, it looked more substantial than beans served from a saucepan. Every child could point to a visible piece of meat and know that some would reach their plate. The beans filled the stomach, but the carefully arranged hot dogs made the dinner look generous. Number 19, creamed hot dogs over toast. Creamed chipped beef was familiar to many American families, but dried beef was not always available or affordable. Hot dogs could perform the same job. A mother sliced them into thin rounds and browned them lightly in a skillet. She removed them, stirred flour into the remaining fat, and slowly added milk until a smooth white gravy formed. The hot dog slices went back into the pan with plenty of black pepper. Then came the real money-saving part. The creamy mixture was spooned over toast made from bread that was becoming too dry for sandwiches. The gravy softened the center while the edges remained crisp. On the plate, the meal looked warm, rich, and filling. The white sauce made a few hot dogs appear to be a large amount of meat. Some families served it over biscuits, potatoes, or leftover cornbread instead. It was not an elegant restaurant dinner, but it carried the same comfort as many expensive cream sauces. The bread stretched the meal, the gravy filled the plate, and the steam rising from the top made a nearly empty pantry feel less frightening. Number 18. Hot dog macaroni supper. Macaroni and hot dogs could have been served directly from a cooking pot, but baking them changed everything. A mother boiled elbow macaroni and mixed it with sliced hot dogs, onion, canned tomatoes, or tomato soup. A small handful of cheese might be stirred through the middle, while breadcrumbs or crushed crackers covered the top. The mixture went into the family's best casserole dish. As it baked, the sauce thickened around the pasta. Hot dog slices curled slightly at the edges, and the thin topping turned crisp and golden. That brown surface made the dinner look finished. It no longer appeared to be macaroni mixed with whatever remained in the refrigerator. It looked like a recipe someone had chosen on purpose. 1 or 2 hot dogs could be sliced into enough rounds to appear in almost every serving. A mother could place the whole bubbling dish in the middle of the table and let everyone scoop out a generous portion. Children often remember dishes like this by a family nickname. To them, it was not cheap macaroni, it was mother's special bake. Number 17, hot dog hash with fried eggs. When potatoes remained from the night before, they often became the foundation of the next meal. A mother diced the cold potatoes and fried them with onion until the edges turned brown and crisp. Then she added sliced hot dogs, allowing them to darken in the hot skillet. The pan already looked full, but one final addition made it appear complete. A fried egg was placed on top. In a larger family, there might not have been enough eggs for everyone. 1 or 2 could be cooked and divided when the hash was served. Their golden yolks spread through the potatoes and created richness throughout the pan. Served directly from cast iron, it resembled something ordered at a roadside diner. The ingredients were breakfast foods, but families ate this hash at any hour. It was especially useful near grocery day when potatoes, onions, and a few hot dogs were all that remained. It had been built from leftovers, but the crisp surface, brown meat, and bright eggs made it look intentional. A nearly empty refrigerator had produced a full skillet. Number 16, mock steak hot dog bundles. This dinner depended almost entirely on presentation. Several hot dogs were placed closely together, sometimes wrapped with half a strip of bacon and secured with toothpicks. Other mothers split the hot dogs and packed seasoned breadcrumbs or onions between them before pressing them into a bundle. The bundles were browned in a skillet or baked until the outside developed color. Then came the gravy. A dark onion gravy covered the meat and hid the familiar shape of the hot dogs. Mashed potatoes and peas completed the plate. From across the table, the small bundle could resemble a meat roll or an individual serving of steak. No adult truly believed it was an expensive cut of beef. That was not the purpose. The purpose was to make an ordinary evening feel worthy of extra effort. This might appear on a birthday, a Sunday, or the night a father returned from a difficult shift. The family was still eating hot dogs, but mother had shaped, browned, wrapped, and plated them with the care normally reserved for something far more costly. Why hot dogs worked so well. Hot dogs were useful for reasons beyond their price. They were already seasoned, quick to cook, easy to store, and familiar enough that most children would eat them without complaint. One package could remain as 8 full hot dogs, become 16 halves, or be sliced into dozens of small pieces. A few rounds could flavor an entire pan of beans, potatoes, rice, or gravy. Mothers also treated hot dogs as more than one kind of meat. Depending on the recipe, they could stand in for sausage, smoked ham, chipped beef, or a small roast. They did not always use hot dogs because they lacked imagination. They used them because hot dogs rewarded imagination. The more carefully they were cut, arranged, covered, or wrapped, the larger and more impressive the meal appeared. Number 15, Frankfurter pinwheels. A few hot dogs could fill an entire tray when they were chopped and rolled inside dough. A mother prepared a simple biscuit dough and rolled it into a flat rectangle. She scattered finely chopped hot dogs across the surface with onion, mustard, or a small amount of grated cheese. Then she rolled the dough into a log and sliced it into spirals. Inside the oven, the pinwheels rose and turned golden. The hot dog pieces appeared between the layers while cheese melted into the folds. Placed on a platter, they looked like savory pastries. The same amount of meat that might have provided only one hot dog for each child could now create a dozen or more attractive pieces. Pinwheels were useful for children's parties, church gatherings, or Friday evenings when mother wanted to place something different on the table. They could be eaten by hand, dipped into sauce, or served beside soup and vegetables. The ingredients remained simple, but rolling and slicing them transformed the appearance completely. A package of hot dogs had become a tray of party food. Number 14, hot dog crown casserole. This was the kind of dinner designed to make children stop and look before anyone began eating. Mashed potatoes, seasoned rice, or macaroni formed the center of a round casserole dish. Hot dogs were cut into shorter pieces and placed upright around the outside. Some leaned inward like the points of a crown. Others stood in a neat circle, each one equally spaced. Peas, carrots, or corn filled the middle with color. Breadcrumbs or a little cheese covered the top. When the casserole came from the oven, the potatoes were golden, the vegetables were bright, and the hot dogs created height around the edge. The arrangement made the meal look far larger than it truly was. Instead of serving portions from the kitchen, Mother could bring the whole crown to the table and cut it in front of the family. It was partly dinner and partly decoration. The recipe did not require expensive ingredients. It required patience. Everyone saw the centerpiece before noticing what it was made from, and that was exactly what made it memorable. Number 13, hot dog gravy over biscuits. Sausage gravy was a beloved meal, but sausage was not always sitting in the refrigerator. Hot dogs could be browned and used in its place. A mother sliced them into small pieces and cooked them until the edges developed color. Flour was stirred into the pan, followed slowly by milk or evaporated milk. Black pepper gave the gravy the familiar appearance of a traditional breakfast sauce. Fresh biscuits were split open and covered generously. Once the hot dog pieces disappeared into the thick gravy, few children cared that sausage had not been used. The biscuits were warm, the sauce was creamy, and every bite carried a little smoky flavor from the meat. For supper, the plate might include fried potatoes, canned vegetables, or sliced tomatoes from the garden. This dinner proved that comfort often came from texture and temperature rather than expensive ingredients. The meat was only one small part of the experience. What the family remembered was the biscuit soaking up the gravy and the smell filling the kitchen before everyone sat down. Number 12, hot dog chop suey. This was not authentic Chinese cooking, and most families making it would not have claimed that it was. It was a mid-century American kitchen's inexpensive interpretation of something new. Hot dogs were sliced diagonally so the pieces no longer looked like ordinary lunch food. They were browned with onion, celery, cabbage, or whatever vegetables were available. Soy sauce and a little brown sugar created a glossy coating. The mixture was served over a mound of white rice. For a family accustomed to potatoes, beans, and gravy, the aroma of soy sauce made the meal feel unusual and exciting. The diagonal slices also created the appearance of more meat. A few hot dogs could be spread across a large amount of vegetables and rice. Some versions included canned bean sprouts, green pepper, or pineapple. Recipes like this often changed from home to home because mothers used what they had rather than following strict instructions. It was inexpensive, filling, and different enough to make an ordinary weeknight feel as though the family had traveled somewhere new without leaving the kitchen. Number 11, stuffed hot dog cabbage rolls. Cabbage could feed a family for very little, especially when it came from a backyard garden. To make it feel substantial, a mother softened the leaves and filled them with rice, onion, tomato sauce, and finely chopped hot dogs. Each leaf was folded into a neat bundle and placed closely beside the others in a baking dish. More tomato sauce covered the top. The roll simmered until the cabbage became tender and the filling absorbed the smoky, salty flavor of the hot dogs. The real transformation came from giving every person an individual portion. A shared skillet could sometimes make children wonder whether enough food remained. A stuffed roll placed on each plate felt complete. The hot dogs had been chopped into small pieces, but their flavor traveled through the rice. Nothing appeared unfinished or improvised. There was a wrapped main dish, sauce, and perhaps a spoonful of vegetables beside it. Mother had not increased the amount of meat. She had increased the feeling that everyone had received something made especially for them. Number 10, Frankfurter rice ring. Molded food looked formal in many mid-century kitchens, even when the ingredients were inexpensive. A mother cooked rice with onion, margarine, and perhaps a few peas. While still warm, the rice was pressed into a ring mold. Families without a special mold could use a mixing bowl, a cake pan, or any rounded dish available. The rice was turned carefully onto a platter. Into the open center went sliced hot dogs cooked in tomato sauce, gravy, or a creamy sauce. The smooth ring of rice surrounded the colorful filling and made the meal appear carefully designed. Paprika, parsley, peas, or sliced carrots could be added for color. The family might have eaten the same ingredients from bowls many times, but shaping them created a moment of ceremony. Everyone watched as the mold was lifted away. If the rice held its shape, Mother had created something that looked suitable for company. The ingredients were humble, but carrying a finished platter to the table made the dinner feel like an occasion. How mothers made cheap food look costly. The expensive part was rarely the food. It was the appearance. Mothers arranged ingredients symmetrically, browned the top of a casserole, cut meat diagonally, and used gravy to give everything a rich shine. They added paprika, parsley, canned pineapple, or a few green peas because color made a plate look complete. Individual portions felt more generous than a shared pan. Toothpicks held decorative shapes together. A good casserole dish made pantry ingredients look important. Even the name mattered. Hot dogs and potatoes sounded like an emergency meal. Frankfurter potato crown sounded like a recipe chosen from a magazine. Children ate first with their eyes. A golden crust, a special serving dish, and a name spoken proudly could change the feeling around the table before anyone lifted a fork. Number 9. Hot dog scalloped potatoes. Scalloped potatoes already carried the appearance of a serious family dinner. Adding hot dogs gave the dish salt, smoke, and enough visible meat to make it feel complete. A mother sliced potatoes very thinly and layered them with onion and hot dog rounds. A simple sauce made from milk, flour, and fat was poured between the layers. If cheese was available, a little went across the top. If not, breadcrumbs created a golden crust. During baking, the potatoes softened and absorbed the flavor of the meat. The sauce thickened around them, while the edges touching the dish became brown and crisp. One package of hot dogs could be sliced thin enough to appear throughout a large casserole. Every square contained potatoes, creamy sauce, onion, and at least a little meat. The casserole could be assembled early and placed in the oven later, making it useful for a busy household. Served with green beans or carrots, it filled the table. No single ingredient was expensive, but the rich layers and brown top made every portion look satisfying. Number 8. Frankfurter Stroganoff. A foreign-sounding name could make an inexpensive dinner feel far more sophisticated. This was not traditional Russian stroganoff. It was a budget American version created from ingredients found in an ordinary kitchen. Hot dogs were cut into long diagonal strips and browned with onion. Mushroom soup or a homemade white sauce formed the base. A spoonful of sour cream, when available, made the sauce richer. Paprika added color. The mixture was served over egg noodles. The wide noodles, creamy sauce, and brown meat strips gave the plate a restaurant-like appearance. Children familiar with hot dogs and buns might not immediately recognize them when they were cut differently and covered in sauce. The fancy name also helped. Calling it hot dogs with noodles described the ingredients. Calling it Frankfurter Stroganoff described the experience Mother wanted the family to have. It was warm, creamy, and filling, with enough sauce to cover a large bowl of noodles. The name sounded expensive, the sauce tasted rich, and the grocery cost remained comfortably small. Number 7. Pineapple-glazed mock ham. A real holiday ham could be beyond the family budget, but its familiar flavors could still appear at the table. A mother scored several hot dogs with shallow diagonal cuts and arranged them in a baking dish with canned pineapple. Brown sugar and mustard were mixed into a glaze. If cloves were available, a few added the fragrance people associated with special holiday meals. As the dish baked, the glaze became dark and shiny. The pineapple softened, and the edges of the hot dogs caramelized. Mashed potatoes or rice absorbed the sweet sauce. Nobody truly mistook the hot dogs for ham, but the smell of brown sugar, mustard, pineapple, and cloves carried the memory of a holiday centerpiece. That was enough to change the mood. This dinner might be served near Christmas, Easter, or on a Sunday when the family could not buy a large roast. Mother was not pretending the family had more money than it did. She was borrowing the colors, fragrance, and sweetness of a celebration and placing them around the least expensive meat in the refrigerator. Number 6. Hot dog Wellington rolls. A plain hot dog eaten from the hand felt ordinary. The same hot dog sealed inside golden dough felt like its own little entree. A mother rolled homemade biscuit dough or leftover pie pastry into small rectangles. Each hot dog was brushed with mustard and sometimes topped with onion or a thin strip of cheese. The dough was folded around it and sealed. If an egg was available, a little egg wash gave the surface a glossy brown finish. Milk or melted margarine could also help create color. Inside the oven, the dough puffed while the hot dog heated in its own steam. When cut open, melted cheese and smoky aroma escaped from the center. Each family member received a complete pastry roll on the plate, perhaps with gravy, potatoes, or vegetables beside it. The dough added bulk, but the shape added most of the value. This was no longer a hot dog waiting for a bun. It had been wrapped, baked, browned, and served as an individual dinner made with care. Number 5. Company hot dog casserole. Company casserole did not always mean a family could afford expensive food. It meant mother believed guests deserved her best effort. This dish could begin with noodles, sliced potatoes, or rice. Chopped hot dogs were mixed with peas, onion, and a creamy sauce made from canned soup or a simple flour and milk gravy. The mixture was placed in a casserole dish and hidden beneath breadcrumbs, crushed crackers, or a thin layer of cheese. Once baked, the top became crisp and golden. Nobody saw the inexpensive meat until mother cut through the crust and served the creamy filling beneath it. The dish looked generous because the pan was full. Bright peas added color, while the crunchy topping made it feel complete. Unexpected guests could be offered a hot meal without the family apologizing for what was in the refrigerator. There might not have been roast beef, chicken, or a large ham, but there was a bubbling casserole in the center of the table, carefully browned and served without embarrassment. That was hospitality built from resourcefulness. What children actually remembered. Years later, children rarely remembered the price of the ingredients. They remembered the floured casserole dish. They remembered being told not to touch the brown top before dinner. They remembered the smell near the oven and father walking through the door as the plates were being filled. They remembered mother using the good dishes on an ordinary night. Some remember these meals by names no cookbook ever recorded because every family called them something different. Many older Americans still prepare similar dinners and would never describe them as forgotten. That is part of their power. A meal can disappear from magazines and restaurant menus while remaining alive inside one family kitchen. Years later, people may learn that the dinner cost very little. At the time, all they knew was that something warm had been placed proudly before them. Number 4. Frankfurter stuffed peppers. Stuffed peppers look like complete individual meals even when the filling was built from inexpensive ingredients. A mother removed the tops from green bell peppers and softened them in hot water. Then she mixed cooked rice with onion, tomato sauce, and hot dogs chopped into very small pieces. The peppers were filled to the top and placed upright in a baking dish. Breadcrumbs or a little cheese created a browned surface. When served, every person received an entire pepper. The green shell, red sauce, and golden topping gave the plate color and height. Cutting into it released steam and revealed the rice filling inside. This dinner worked especially well when peppers came from the family garden or a neighbor's extra harvest. A few hot dogs could disappear into enough rice to fill several large peppers. Because the meat had been chopped finely, its flavor spread through every bite. The pepper itself became both ingredient and serving dish. A small amount of meat had become a complete portion that looked generous, colorful, and carefully prepared. Number 3. Hot dog Sunday dinner with brown gravy. Sometimes the most powerful transformation came from serving the food in a traditional way. Hot dogs were browned whole or sliced lengthwise in a skillet. Onion cooked beside them until soft and dark. A simple brown gravy was prepared from the pan drippings and poured over the meat. But instead of mixing everything together, mother plated each part separately. A mound of mashed potatoes sat on one side. Peas or carrots added color. The browned hot dogs rested beside them beneath a spoonful of onion gravy. The structure resembled a classic Sunday dinner: meat, potatoes, vegetables, and gravy. This mattered in homes where Sunday supper represented stability, even during difficult weeks. The family might not have been able to buy a roast, but they could still sit together for a formal meal. No one ate from the cooking pan. Plates were filled carefully and brought to the table. The hot dogs had not changed. The way they were browned, covered, and served had changed everything around them. Number 2. Hot dog dinner pie. Anything baked beneath a golden crust carried a sense of mystery. A mother mixed sliced hot dogs with onion, leftover vegetables, and gravy. The filling went into a deep baking dish. Then she covered it completely. Some used biscuit dough. Others spread mashed potatoes over the surface and made decorative lines with a fork. Leftover pie pastry could also be used when available. The crust hid the ingredients underneath. Children could not see what they were eating until Mother broke through the top at the table. Steam escaped from the opening, carrying the smell of gravy and onions. Beneath it were bright vegetables, thick sauce, and hot dog slices. The anticipation made the meal feel special. A pie suggested that someone had planned ahead, prepared a filling, made a crust, and waited for it to brown. The meat inside was inexpensive, but nobody felt cheated. Mother had turned leftovers and pantry staples into a complete family pie. The crust did more than cover the filling. It covered the worry that the kitchen had almost run out of food. Number 1. The Frankfurter Celebration Crown. This dinner delivered everything a resourceful mother understood about presentation. She began with mashed potatoes and shaped them into a large ring in the center of a round platter or baking dish. Hot dogs were cut, scored, and arranged around the outside like the points of a crown. Some stood upright, others leaned inward in an even pattern. The open center was filled with bright peas, carrots, or corn. Breadcrumbs or a little cheese covered the potatoes. The hot dogs were brushed with tomato glaze or brown gravy until they looked shiny. Paprika added color. A small piece of parsley from the garden might be placed on top. After baking, the potato ring was golden, the vegetables were bright, and the hot dogs had browned around their edges. Mother carried the entire crown to the table before cutting it into portions. This was the kind of dinner reserved for a birthday, an unexpected guest, or an evening when children needed to forget that the family was struggling. It was not the most expensive meal on the table. It was the meal that required the most imagination. She had not turned hot dogs into steak. She had turned an ordinary evening into an occasion. These dinners were never truly about pretending to be wealthy. They were about making a limited amount of food feed everyone without allowing the table to feel empty. Mother stretched meat with potatoes, rice, beans, bread, noodles, cabbage, and gravy, but they also stretched something less visible. They stretched confidence. They protected their children from worry. They made leftovers feel new and inexpensive food feel intentional. A carefully arranged plate told the family that dinner still mattered. Did your mother or grandmother prepare any of these meals? What did your family call them, and which part of America did you grow up in? Perhaps your family made another hot dog dinner that deserves to be remembered. Share that memory in the comments so the old recipes and family names are not lost. Like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who remembers when nothing from the kitchen was wasted. These mothers may have used the cheapest meat in the refrigerator, but there was nothing cheap about the patience, pride, and love they placed around the family table.